Hi, everyone. I'm Don Rooney.
And I'm John Timpane.
Welcome to the Musical Innertube, the podcast born out of a mistake.
We once meant to introduce a soothing musical interlude, but we said soothing musical Innertube, and the name stuck.
On this podcast, we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, jobs, hobbies, and passions.
Difference makers who really make a difference.
And today on the Musical Innertube, we have as a guest one of the main reasons we love New Jersey, Joy Stocke. Joy is a poet, fiction writer, essayist, consultant, and publisher, and also a world-class chef. She is a co-founder and editor at Tree of Life Consulting and Publishing, and for many years, she co-helmed the remarkable and beloved online cultural publication Wild River Review. Among her own books are a travel memoir, Anatolian Days and Nights, and a splendid, delicious cookbook, Tree of Life, Turkish Home Cooking. She's here today in her capacity as a chef for herself and other people, talking about stocking your kitchen if you want to start cooking, or just about cooking itself. We'll see where it goes. Welcome to the Musical Innertube, Joy Stocke.
I love floating along with you guys, so thank you.
So, Joy, look, let's just start at the beginning. Have you always cooked? Did you get into it? Yes. From a young age? Tell me how you got into it.
Well, my grandma was, and my grandpa, they were immigrants from Germany. And she, brought the old country with her. And she was a cleaning lady. And she cooked for the house as well as being a cleaning lady. She would, make meals for the people she worked for. And so I would help her in the kitchen. And I started probably I'm going to exaggerate a little, but not so much, about 18 months. And she had a little footstool for me, and I stood next to her, and she would make grandma stuff, Apfelkuchen, Flammkuchen. She taught me how to whip schlag when I was really little, whipped cream, all kinds of things, chicken soup. And I took to it right away, and I took to her. I loved her, and I loved that. And one other piece of that is we're an old school family. My father's side is Polish Catholic. So there was always giant mess of people around for every single holiday. And the ladies used to gather in the kitchen. The men would go do whatever guys were doing. And they'd all be at the end of the party getting the dishes and washing and talking. And I loved it. I just loved it. And to this day, if I'm depressed or unhappy, all I have to do is walk into a kitchen.
And what was the last thing that you cooked?
Myself? Actually, so my friends of mine, if I can give them a plug, David Rago and Suzanne Perot, they own the Rago Auction House in Lambertville, and they had my fiance and me to dinner last night. Yeah. And they've been making these Parmesan cheese crisps, and we haven't gotten the recipe right. And there's a woman in Gladwin, Pennsylvania, an 80-year-old woman that sells them at a farmer's market. Right. So I was tasked at trying to recreate her crisps. And it's a tablespoon of Parmesan cheese sprinkled with pecans, heated in the oven for 5 minutes to 7 minutes at 350 degrees. Mine are not like hers. I don't know what her secret is. Mine are a little soggy in the middle. And I am guessing she might use an air fryer. So I'm telling you this story. It's the last thing I cooked. And tonight, I am trying it again with an air fryer because I'm going to crack this code. So
you're going to ace this. Wow.
Do you find, though, Joy, that when people pass on recipes, they leave something out that because, again, my wife made recipes that were given to her by her mother, and she said the same thing you did. Oh, this isn't right. This isn't exactly the way Mom made it. So do you think that they are actually leaving stuff out, or that a pinch of this and a knob of that or whatever is specific to how it all turns out?
So that's a two-pronged question, because one, I know myself as a person who writes recipes, I sometimes leave things out, especially if I'm with a bunch of other chefs, because I don't want them to steal my recipe. So A, that's the truth. But B, sometimes if it's Mom's recipe, she doesn't remember that she adds X or Y. And she might add a little extra butter because it's taste when it's family and the grandma or the mom, knows what they're doing with this. And any of you who are cooks know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And you know the little things. So that may not be deliberate, but I will tell you, yes, cooks and chefs do leave things out. We want to keep it proprietary. Yep.
Interesting. I mean, I find myself, after having tried somebody's recipe a couple of times, I find myself cutting down on salt and sugar a lot. Maybe using half as much sugar, maybe not using salt at all. It really depends. I mean, sometimes you do use salt if I know you have to use sugar. Really, I don't know how you use how you make a blueberry pie without using sugar or honey without it, because blueberries, they just get really bitter as you cook them and more concentrated. I tried to use it without sugar one time, and it was a horrible, disastrous catastrophe, a true fracasso. And, so there are things that you find. I mean, I think that people who are real cooks learn how to be loosey-goosey about these things and watch how they change and how a little change here produces a change down the line in the process. I'm sure you've seen that a lot.
Well, you're describing something. And one of the things about sugar is it's a humectant. So why you need sugar for other reasons is it creates the sauce. It creates that unguent thickness. And I like to add always, and you probably do too, is grated lemon to the blueberry, because that picks up the flavor. And I do like using a pinch of salt because it also bounces. But of course, we tailor our recipes depending if somebody has problems with sodium, etc. And everybody does that, and things still taste good. But it's interesting what you say about sugar. I do think there's often too much sugar in recipes, and you can cut it. You can't leave it out because it's that humectant quality.
Right.
But you can cut it. And that you mentioned that I do private chef work, and there's a cupcake recipe if you want it. It's really good. And I love this cupcake recipe, just vanilla, simple cupcakes. I cut the sugar by half. It doesn't need the extra sugar. So I think once upon a time we're a sugar-loving culture, but that's up then to the individual cook. So
right. I mean, it's just something you wouldn't know until you'd actually done it a couple of times.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I had a friend who did some expose. Again, back in radio and TV days, there were always people who were looking for scoops, that kind of thing. And he did a series of reports on what we didn't really expect to find in our food. Like, for example, he took frozen peas and frozen green beans and said, look at how much added salt there is to these. He says, you think you're buying just vegetables that were picked off the vine and put in the freezer, but they've actually had salt added. And he said, his question was, do you really need the salt to preserve something that's frozen? He also said, you may like this brand of spaghetti sauce better than this. That's because this spaghetti sauce has sugar in it.
Yeah.
And this one does not. So again, there are things that are in stuff we eat every day that we really don't realize is there.
That's why if you can either make most of the stuff you have or really stay as basic as possible. Food is made to be addictive, as we all know. Easter was on Sunday and we had a crowd, as we always do. And my nieces and nephews brought tons of Doritos, ranch cheese Doritos. I never have those in the house because they are made to keep eating, and they're salty and they've got sugar in them and they've got and fat. And we human beings are built to cram that down our throat. We're just built that way. We're supposed to do that because of the feast and famine.
Yes.
It's wired into our genetics.
Part of our brains thinks there will never be any more. So we should gorge on what we have in front of us.
Yeah. That's always really interesting to me. And I think that's true with so much with human nature. And that's the idea of balancing with what you were talking about with your blueberry pie. How much sugar can I drop? But still having sugar, how can I get still the right balance so it's completely pleasurable, but not gonna shoot up my blood sugar? It's not gonna knock me. And when I grew up, and I don't know about you guys, I'm kind of I'm old enough to be a dichotomy. Like my grandma, there was an egg man, there was a milkman. We went to the butcher on the bus, and she gave us a half a stick of double mint so that we would stay warm. And and then there was my mom, the modern food era. You know, she has 4 kids, all within 5 years. Hamburger helper and shake-a pudding, and I could remember shake-a pudding, shake.
Yep.
And so I grew up one hand with this very wholesome food, on the other hand, junk food galore. And I feel like I'm lucky that I didn't end up on the junk food side, but you sure could, right?
Yes. Joy, of course, is always prepared. And so she's brought us a list of what she considers to be the well-stocked basic kitchen. And I think we should talk about some of these ingredients she recommends. And at the end, she also has given us a really cool recipe, which we should talk about because it's an easy recipe. And yet we can talk about, cooking it, because if there's anything that people talk a lot about in New Jersey, anything cooking, it's gravy. What I mean by that is, tomato sauce and, how to make it. My son, Connor, is a scientist of gravy and how you make it right. And I mean, he really slaves over it. And his is really tremendous. I mean, it really shows his care. He's a good cook. But let's look at your list, Joy. Let's look at the first 10 items on this list here. So the first 10 items are as follows: kosher salt, flaky sea salt, whole peppercorns in a pepper grinder. Interesting. Paprika, dried pepper flakes, extra virgin olive oil, neutral oil, and you give 2 examples, canola or avocado, butter, milk or milk substitute, preferably whole milk, and then 10 eggs. Let's go to the 2 kinds of salt. What is the mystique of kosher salt?
Kosher salt has a different chemistry to it. The flakes have a little more air in between. They're a little slightly aerated, and so they distribute better. And most recipes modern recipes call for kosher salt. Kosher salt versus a plate like table salt. Yeah. If there's not as much salt in the tablespoon or teaspoon of kosher salt as there would be in the other one, there's less space because the molecules are a little further apart. The chemical structure.
Does it dissolve well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It dissolves just fine. Yeah.
And what is flaky sea salt? That's a new one on me.
Oh, flaky sea salt is a real treat. It's Malden salt as an example. It's the one I really like, and that's off the coast of the English Channel somewhere, and it's flakes of salt. I'll bring you some. That'll be a gift from me. I'll bring you some salt, and it's flakes, and it's often used on a salad. They're like crunchy, like eating a little piece of a potato chip or something, and you can sprinkle them on salads, and you can taste the salt with the lettuce. So sometimes I toss right at the end. I mean, I don't know how you make your salad, but a really simple one. Say you have the lettuce, then you put in the olive oil, then you squeeze on your acid, be it lemon or a vinegar, and then you top it with these flaky crystals. And so no piece of this lettuce has like a giant thing of, table salt stuck in a corner of it, and it gives you a crunch. If I might say, it's a sensual pleasure.
You did a lot of the research in your cooking, a lot of the background of your cooking for the book in Turkish food.
Yeah.
What do you know about that pink Himalayan salt? I know a lot of people have gone with that. What is that, and why is it used in cooking?
It's got more minerals. That's why it's pink. So lots of times people use it. It's got a flavor. I mean, you can lay out a bunch of salts and taste slightly different flavor profiles. But part of the reason people do it, it's got, and I've got my hands in air quotes, health properties. I mean, you'd have to eat a lot of salt, Himalayan salt, to get the benefits. But by that point, your blood pressure would be through the roof. Now, the truth is, I have containers. I have 4 containers on my stove, because I have a little ledge. I have table salt. I have kosher salt. I have pink salt. I have Himalayan salt because I think it's pretty. I think it looks pretty on, I don't know, say you've got a yogurt dish. It looks pretty on it. And then I have the flaky salt. So I use them kind of depending on what is needed. I also have smoked salt. I have Jamaica, which is Florida Jamaica. I can't even think of the English of it right now.
Yeah.
But hibiscus. I have hibiscus salt, which adds a little sweet. So I consider salts obviously a necessary component of food. You know, it tenderizes.
Of course.
Salt tenderizes meat. You know, it gives a flavor to breads, things like that. It preserves. It's a preservative. But it's also fun. They're fun to use and to experiment with. So the two that I would have, though, would be the kosher and the flaky.
And I see that you recommend that we get our whole peppercorns in a pepper grinder.
Yeah.
And I must say that ever since we switched to that, I don't know, 10 years ago, I mean, I don't do it any other way. It just seems like it's a great way to have fresh pepper as much as you want. You know, it's just, the taste is great. I happen to love getting little chunks of pepper.
I know.
between my teeth. Some people don't like that, but I also
They love looking at you too when you do that.
yeah, people love people ever like that little.
You have something in your teeth, John.
Yeah.
The peppercorn, the ground peppercorn seems to have a much sharper taste to it. And is that just because it's not been sitting already ground in a little bottle for a while?
Once it's in the bottle, the oils are going to evaporate. You know, it's the aromatic smell and the taste of them, but the oil will evaporate, so the scent will evaporate with it, and then it just has really not very much a peppery flavor to it. Believe me, if I'm in a diner, I'll just dump a lot of it on, and it's you know, I'm not gonna say, where is the pepper grinder?
I'll say the 3, 4, and 5, which is the whole peppercorns in the grinder, paprika, and then the dried red pepper flakes. I mean, those 3 are getting a workout now in our kitchen. You know, it took us a while to catch up. At least it took me a while. I was afraid of using the red pepper flakes because I basically am afraid of making spicy, hot food. But I've come across now. I make a pretty mean amatriciana, you know, and you need hot pepper flakes for that kind of thing, you know. So those 3 are a wonderful combination of they're very flavorful. You don't have to make things raging hot, but they really have a lot of character.
So one of the things now we're talking about, you know, when somebody withholds something from a recipe, it could be one of those 3 things, or the pepper flakes. I'm just saying, I'm a Tiziana. It may taste perfect with I'm making this up, a teaspoon of pepper flakes, but you don't want somebody to get your secret as why it's spicy, but not too spicy. So you might say, oh, just add a half teaspoon. You know, that's where people start playing around with that, you know, the signature flavors in their dishes.
We'll be back to our podcast in just a moment, but first, here's a soothing musical interlude.
Joy Stocke has established a reputation all over New Jersey and far and wide as an editor, publisher, and writer.
She has written a book of poems, The Cave of the Bear, a travel memoir, Anatolian Days and Nights, a love affair with Turkey, Land of Dervishes, Goddesses, and Saints, and a cookbook, Tree of Life, Turkish Home Cooking.
She also co-founded the highly regarded online journal Wild River Review, and with her team of editors and designers went on to co-found Tree of Life Consulting and Publishing, which is focused on cultural and cross-cultural histories and memoirs. For more about Joy, check out her Facebook page at facebook.com/joy.stocke or her LinkedIn page, that's linkedin.com/IN/JOY-STOCKE-941-2B66.
And now we return you to the musical Innertube already in progress. The next couple of things, I know that extra virgin olive oil is what everybody wants to use because it's the in oil, and apparently those health benefits come in. But it also leaves a very distinct taste.
Yes.
So I have heard what you're talking about, getting a neutral oil. And that always runs into problems because, this oil is got too much of this kind of fat and that kind of fat. So you picked canola and avocado. Why did you pick those as the neutral oil?
Canola is got less of what you're describing, and you also should get organic of these if you can. Olive oil, not necessarily. If you get like a Spanish or Italian, normally they are just organic because they're grown in the. But these oils are processed, many oils are processed. And so that's why I say organic, if you can afford it. And obviously, if you can't, you get what you can, like you can't go crazy on this stuff. I just saw an article that the average food basket's gone up by $35 since 2019. So think about that. I put this list together because I thought this would be something with didn't do the fresh fruits and vegetables so much on it, but I wanted a staples that are cheap but good,
Yes,
so
sure.
if you're really not eating with a lot of meat and things, it's worth it to get the organic oils if you can. I use avocado oil myself. I love avocado oil. It's really, and I can vouch that it's neutral because my sister was making a tasting dip on Sunday and she thought she had the extra virgin and she used the avocado by mistake and she called me over to tell me that my oil was really bland. And which says why it's a neutral oil for certain things. It doesn't give a flavor. And the second reason is you can cook it at a higher temperature. Because extra virgin olive, if you're going to cook, then you're not going to get an extra virgin to cook with because it'll burn.
Yes.
It burns. So
that's one of the things about EVU is that people, I think a lot of people cook at too high a temperature anyway, don't they? I mean, last few years, I've learned how to cook at medium and low medium. I used to just put everything up high and hope for the best, but I've learned how not to do that. And actually the results are wonderful. Just a little extra patience and nuance, and so I'm, and I do like to add, I do that little trick that some chefs do. They have a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter together.
Oh,
yeah. To get that sort of emulsifying advantage that butter gives you. And also the way that oil seems to, especially the non-taste oils, they do give you a nice basis to cook in, you know what I mean? And I noticed that you talk about eggs and flour. I noticed that in most of what I'm reading now, although sure, too much dairy is bad for you, I think that the clock has swung back a little bit in favor of dairy. It used to be way against it, but I've noticed that people are saying, well, actually, we do need some fat.
Yeah.
And
one of the things with that is that's why I put whole milk. We're really afraid, like we think we're going to gain weight. And the truth is, if you, again, we're talking eating in moderation. I'm not talking about down in a gallon of milk every day like we kids did, but the fat actually gets you full quicker. That's the other thing. When you remember that whole craze with the fat-free diets, we actually were eating more because the fat, our bodies craves it, and it gives you a satiation point. So I'm a big believer in fat, to tell you the truth,
Mm-hmm. And it also is a yet again another way to make great sauces. It's the basic way of making really good sauces. And then let's see, 12 through 16 are the aromatic vegetables. Parsley, celery, onions, carrots, and garlic. And as you point out, you can make a great mirepoix or a Holy Trinity or sofrito, which are all, you basically chop the heck out of all of them and then sort of, pan baste them for about 5 minutes in some pretty hot oil. And now you have a base for a lot of stuff. I mean, most people don't know that Spagbo, spaghetti bolognese, real bolognese sauce was a ground veal sauce that has a mirepoix in it, right? So, or sofrito, as they say in Italian or Spanish, and in both, in fact. And but that touch really changes it. It really changes the sauce, and I'd love it. You can really use sofrito / mirepoix in a lot of different directions.
Yes, you can. Yep. And we have eggs on that list and flour, and with eggs and flour, you can, if you want, make pasta.
Yep.
With these ingredients, you could do the sofrito and you can put it in the center of an omelet, so you could have, and the parsley. So kind of with those, you get a lot of your basic vitamin C with the parsley. You got vitamin A with the carrots. You've got, micronutrients with the celery. You've got the quercetin with the onions. You've got the antimicrobial with the garlic. You kind of can get a nice vegetable profile there too.
Absolutely. You don't need anything else almost. I mean,
No, you don't. Oh my gosh. Like you were saying, I need a head of this kind of lettuce, and then the radicchio, and then, the endive, and then they had whatever greens were growing out in the field practically.
Exactly
horta.
right.
The Greeks call it horta.
Oh, right, exactly. And I noticed too that you talk about having a large can of good plum tomatoes, and then a can of tomato paste. So this is the basis for, tomato sauces, as we'll see in a moment. And 19, I especially love talking about stock. And not just because our guest today is Joy Stocke, but also because a good stock is a thing of beauty. I mean, and really a homemade stock is superior to anything you can buy. That chicken carcass or that turkey carcass, boil it, and then skim off the fat, and you've got, the startings of just a wonderful stew or soup.
And right above, you have your ingredients, the carrots, the celery, the onions. Go just throw that in, right? We're right there.
You're making me drool here. Of course, I do that the best of times.
Now, when you get down to the pasta, you're looking at linguine instead of spaghetti. Why is that?
Yeah, I like the texture. I mean, you could be any pasta, but it was my list, so I thought linguine is just a little thicker, and I like it for its bite a little bit. Sometimes I feel cheated by regular old spaghetti because it slides down too quickly, and I just like linguine. That's my reason. It's my personal reason.
Oh, there you go. And when you come to rice, you say a box of basmati rice. Now, my wife and I were introduced to basmati rice from some friends of ours who owned an Indian restaurant. And we started going there to eat, and they said, don't ever buy the white rice, buy the basmati rice because it has a flavor to it. And we said, but we did. We had a little bit of the white rice left over one night, and we put it in, and we had bought a bag of basmati, and we said, we don't have enough rice for this. Well, we'll add a little of the basmati to make it up so that we have enough for the dish. And there was a clear difference between the two, which floored us, but we bought basmati after that, ever after. So how were you introduced to it, and why is that better than just plain old white rice?
I don't necessarily think it's better. Again, this was my list, and it's my favorite. I grew up on Carolina rice. I like Carolina rice too, and I think you have to. And if you're going to make a risotto, because you can with the list here. I mean, this list you really can make anything. Then you want, I forget, arborio rice. So I only picked basmati because I was playing the game where it's pantry with one thing, and that was my preference. I just love the fragrance of it. It smells so good to me, and it tastes good. It's got a toothsomeness to it.
Yes.
But again, any rice that somebody likes. I mean, you don't want to do arborio if you're just making a dish where you're you're cooking it. So I also love sushi rice. I love sticky, yummy sushi rice. I love rice actually.
Yes.
But basmati just is fragrant. And again, when I was imagining, I was looking at the list, and I thought, if you had the paprika and a little red pepper, you could do sort of this Indian. You could start to move. You could. That was my imagination.
So you end with linguine, basmati rice, vinegar, and lemons. What do you say to a person like me who's afraid of vinegar?
Why?
I don't know. I think
it scared him when he was a little kid.
Yeah, so his mother probably made him drink it every night, apple cider vinegar or something.
I think, I don't know. I don't like to feel that it's too strong in a dish, but I know that there's plenty of dishes that vinegar gives a beautiful brightness to. Like you've had my yellow tomato sauce, and
which is off the chain.
And thank you. And one of the stars of the show there is just like a quarter cup, maybe not even that, of maybe an eighth of a cup of rice wine vinegar. And it really it's just a little bright toot of the horn, What do you say to people about what does vinegar do?
So vinegar adds that sharpness you're describing. It adds a little, it plays on the back of our mouths. It plays on the middle of our palates, on the side. And, food, like you just use music as a metaphor here. I think that's a great metaphor. Too much vinegar makes a dish sour and bleh, but just the right amount adds, like you said, the bright note. It also cuts through fat if there's a lot of fat.
Yes.
If the dish is a little bland, it'll cut that, it'll round it. And there's various kinds that I have on the list, like your tomato sauce, gravy, because we're in Jersey. That is such a beautiful dish. And there's these yellow tomatoes. So the rice wine vinegar has some seasoning in it. So, for instance, if you were sharing your recipe, you might keep that out and say, white wine vinegar, and then it'd be your secret recipe. See how I'm playing the game of how to be.
Sure you are.
Yeah.
Sure you are.
Proprietary until we're ready not to be. Like, who gets my secret recipe?
Sure.
So, again, for me, I like to add that multi-dimension. To me, eating truly is a sensual pleasure. I do cook every night, and John knows for many years I've been living completely by myself with the cat lady. And I cook for myself every single night because it's just a pleasure. And anybody who does a lot of cooking alone, and I don't cook for one because I'm from a family of 6, so unfortunately, there's a lot of, I can't cook for one. I don't even know how to really do it. Obviously I could, but I will play with these. It's playing. So maybe, when I say vinegar, what if I add too much? It's okay. All right, I made a mistake. What if you try it, like you're afraid of it, and you make a mistake? We're writers, right? And many things. We're all many things. But one of the things I am is a writer, and I kind of look through the lens of writing. And here's my folder. I just happen to have it here. Here's my folder of recipes for my private chefing stuff. So I'm always, but I see this as poetry in many ways. And if you make a mistake, for writers, we say make a mess. Well, now we're using a metaphor that we're actually using something like a kitchen or clay. So if somebody's afraid of it, I would say if I was going to start with one, I'd probably start with white wine vinegar and add it. Do you know the dish chicken scarpiello?
I've never tried to make it.
Oh, I have. I can make it maybe for you guys. Maybe I'll make it for you sometime. But that calls over. Yeah. I'll come over and make it. We could make it together.
Yes.
I'm testing a couple, and that calls for a lot of vinegar. Vinegar is the key element in scarpiello, and butter. So we could have two things, but I love it. It's a classic.
No. I'm sure it's beautiful. I'm sure I'll love it. I just need you to stand over my shoulder.
Well, let's do it together. Let's plan to do that together.
Yeah, what a wonderful play date.
Yes.
To have you guys get together and make stuff. Yeah.
We've actually not done that before. We have cooked cookies because once a year, Joy has this wonderful cookie baking night that comes close to Christmas, which is so hygge. It's
very hygge.
It's very hygge. And we love it. We're I want to make sure we get to this recipe because we're going to put the 25 items on our website. We'll put that on our website. We'll post that. And then you've given us Marcella Hazen's classic 3-ingredient red gravy, this wonderful earthy basic sauce. It has 1 28-ounce can of whole peeled tomatoes, 5 tablespoons butter, 1 sweet onion, white or yellow. See, I love those 5 tablespoons butter. You just take the stick and throw the thing in and run like blazes. Get out of that. And then salt to taste, right? And so let's look at step 1. The only thing I want to ask is it okay? Can I crush the tomatoes with my hands? Or is that bad? No? Okay, because I prefer to do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. You just crush them with your hands. And I mean, if it were me making it, I would do, if you want them more rustic, I'd follow step 2. I wouldn't even crush them at all. I'd do step 2.
Oh, I just let them break down.
Paragraph 2. Yeah, I just let them break down on their own. That would be my way of doing it.
All right. So you get those tomatoes and you throw them in the pan, right? And you cut you peel and you cut the onion in half, but you leave the root end attached so the onion doesn't fall apart. So the onion is sort of it's cut in half, but the root holds it together. It's not going to fall apart into the sauce. Am I correct?
Yeah, cut it in half lengthwise rather than crosswise.
Okay.
Tip to root, so each side. And you can, even if you want, leave the skin on. You don't have the papery skin. You can if you want to. That's how simple it is. And then
you simmer the sauce and a little salt, right? And then this is a very interesting point that you make. A wider skillet reduces the sauce more effectively than a deep pot. And I think that stands to reason. It exposes it to more air and allows more of it to evaporate, right? And stirring occasionally, let the sauce go until it is reduced and thickened about 15 minutes. And what kind of heat are we using there, Joy?
Medium low. So this goes to what you were saying, low and slow. Like you could even do it on low. It depends. Everybody's stoves are different.
Yeah.
My low is my low is a medium low. So I do a lot of things, and I might push it down to simmer.
So what you have at the end, you test the taste as you go along. You have the patience to let it sort of cook down, and I think to a lot of beginning cooks, they're surprised to hear that happens, but you can see it happen. Over 15 minutes, you will see that you lose about a third of the bulk of your sauce, and that's what's beautiful. You're concentrating the flavor. You're getting rid of the water. It's really what you need to do. My mom used to throw the meat in the sauce, cook it for 5 minutes, and throw it on top of the spaghetti. Don will remember the kinds of meals we used to have at my house. I mean, it was just like, if you can find food, good, good for you. So she rarely had the patience that we're talking about, but it means 15, 20 minutes, maybe, so I like what you're doing. And we will put this up on our website to accompany our discussion here. I'm just afraid that if we didn't get to it, we'd be talking for about 70 minutes here on this half-hour podcast.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. So that's okay. And I just want to say to this recipe, something that I do with the onion, I take half of it and I puree it and put it back in because it's super.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
And now this is something some people don't like to know they're eating onions, right?
They wouldn't know. You would never know.
Right. They'll be part of the flavor. They'll be part of the texture. But they won't crunch down. It won't go, okay. So,
like my sister Amy, when we were growing up, there'd be onions and something, and she'd go, "Mom, you put the things in again."
So once again, we're talking about hidden ingredients. There you go.
Hidden ingredients.
Could you put garlic in this as well?
Well, you could do whatever you want now. It'll become your recipe.
Mm-hmm.
So
recipe.
Your recipe.
That is a Philly accent. Recipe.
Yeah, recipe. It really
what are you doing today?
I'm gonna go swimming in the water.
In the water. Yeah. What are you doing tonight?
Going out and getting water ice.
Joy Stocke, we have had a ball, and we ain't even gotten started yet about all the stuff we can talk about. So we'll have you on soon. I want to talk about, both of us want to talk about the world of Turkish cooking, in which you are our guide, but also things, you're a master baker. And in baking, I do some, but it still scares the pants off of me. How about you, Don? Do you have pants on still, or?
I have pants on, but my wife and I my wife started a small business, and I was in it because I was in the room. Where we were baking brownies for a local establishment to sell as their dessert. And I got very adept at making full sheet pan brownies, and then cutting them up and bagging them. So that's the extent of my baking career. So one of these days, when we all get together, I'll make a sheet of brownies for you.
I knew there was a reason I loved you.
Yes. They're chocolate, so they automatically taste good no matter what.
I want to say the next time we talk, you'll need to share your recipe with us.
That'll give me time to figure out what to leave out.
Yes.
Yeah, if there's no chocolate in it, I know you're playing silly.
Exactly. That'll be a major problem.
Joy Stocke, thank you for being on the Musical Innertube. We'll have you back before long.
Thank you so much to both of you, and I wish you a great weekend.
And thank you for listening to the Musical Innertube.
Hey, let us know how we're doing. Send us an email at musicalinnertube, all one word, @gmail.com.
Do you know someone with a great story to tell? Let us know. Send us an email or log in to our website, musicalinnertube.com, and click on the microphone in the lower right-hand corner to leave us a voicemail.
And while you're on our website, take a few minutes to listen to past episodes of the podcast. They're all there, along with pictures and biographies of our guests, blog posts, and lots more.
And as always, our thanks to virtual band Car Radio Dog for providing us with our theme music.